Welcome to Shattered Sky Stories. Remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button so you don't miss any sci-fi stories. Now sit back and enjoy. The drill sang its mechanical hymn through Europa's ancient ice, a sound that had become as familiar to Dr. Sally Leon as her own heartbeat. 3 months of steady boring into Jupiter's moon had brought them to this moment, the breakthrough that would make history. She pressed her face against the observation window of the drilling platform, watching the tungsten bit spin through the final meters of the ice sheet. Depth reading shows we're almost through, called tech specialist Martinez from his console. Maybe another hour before we hit the ocean. Dr. Leon nodded, unable to suppress her excitement. Beneath them lay Europa's hidden sea, locked away for billions of years beneath miles of frozen water. If life existed anywhere else in the solar system, it would be here, in the dark currents that had never seen sunlight. Commander Robbins entered the drilling chamber, his weathered face showing the strain of months in space. "Leon, how are we looking?" "Perfect. All systems nominal. The drill temperature is stable and we're getting consistent readings on the ice density. We should breach within." The platform shuddered. It wasn't the usual vibration of the drill working through hard ice. This was something else, a tremor that seemed to come from below, as if something massive had shifted in the depths. The mechanical singing of the drill changed pitch, becoming higher, more strained. What the hell was that? Robbins moved to Martinez's station, studying the readouts. Martinez's fingers danced across his controls. "I'm showing. This can't be right. The drill just dropped 3 meters. Like it fell through empty space." Dr. Leon felt her pulse quicken. "We've broken through. The drill chamber must have hit a large cavity in the ice." But even as she said it, she knew something was wrong. The platform continued to shudder, and now there were other sounds, creaking, groaning noises that seemed to come from the ice itself, as if the entire structure around them was under immense pressure. "Martinez, bring up the drill camera," Robbins ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the view from the drill head. Instead of the expected rocky ocean floor or even empty water, the camera revealed something impossible. The drill had broken through into a vast cavity filled not with water, but with what looked like a cathedral-sized chamber carved from ice. And floating in the center of this space, perfectly preserved, was something that made Dr. Leon's breath catch in her throat. It was enormous, easily the size of a city block, and clearly not terrestrial. The creature's form was serpentine but wrong, covered in what appeared to be scaled armor that gleamed with an oily iridescence even in the drill's harsh lights. Multiple limbs extended from its torso, each ending in appendages that seemed part hand, part weapon. Most disturbing were the dozens of sensory organs that dotted its massive head. Not quite eyes, but something that suggested intelligence far beyond anything Earth had produced. "Jesus Christ," Martinez whispered. Is that a whale? Some kind of prehistoric creature?" Dr. Leon stared at the screen, her scientific mind racing. The proportions were all wrong for any Earth creature, even an extinct one. The symmetry was too perfect, too deliberate. And the way it hung there in the ice cavern, perfectly positioned as if it had been placed rather than fallen. "It's not from Earth," she said quietly. "The bone structure, the limb configuration. This is alien. We found the first evidence of extraterrestrial life, and it's massive." Commander Robbins was already reaching for the communication panel. "We need to contact Earth immediately. This changes everything." But before he could activate the transmitter, the creature's nearest sensory organ snapped open. It wasn't an eye, not exactly. The organ was more like a crystalline window into something vast and hungry, and it was looking directly at them through the drill camera. Dr. Leon felt a pressure in her skull, as if something was trying to force its way into her mind. Images flashed before her eyes. Deep water, ancient battles fought in the void between stars, and something else. A sense of vast intelligence awakening after eons of sleep. "It's alive," she gasped, staggering backward from the screen. The platform lurched violently. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility as system after system registered massive environmental changes. The ice around their drilling site was shifting, cracking, responding to some tremendous force from below. "All hands to emergency stations." Robbins shouted into the intercom. "We have a code red situation. Repeat, code red." Through the observation windows, Dr. Leon could see the surface of Europa beginning to buckle and heave. Massive fissures appeared in the ice sheet, radiating outward from their drilling site like a spider web of destruction. And from deep below, a sound began to rise, a low rhythmic thrumming that seemed to resonate through the entire moon. "The creature," Dr. Leon said, her voice barely audible over the alarms. "We've woken it up." Martinez was frantically working at his console, trying to retract the drill. "The boring assembly is stuck. Something's holding it down there." On the screen they could see thick rope-like appendages wrapping around the drill mechanism. But these weren't coming from the massive corpse in the ice chamber. They were reaching up from somewhere deeper, from the true ocean below. "That's not the creature," Dr. Leon realized with growing horror. "That thing in the ice, it's just the skin. Something much larger is down there." The thrumming sound grew louder, more insistent. Through the facility's hull, they could feel vibrations that seemed to bypass their ears entirely, resonating in their bones, their teeth, the liquid in their inner ears. It was a sound that spoke of vast intelligence and ancient hunger. Commander Robbins grabbed Dr. Leon by the shoulders. "What exactly did we drill into?" She looked at him with eyes that reflected a terrible understanding. "Not just Europa's ocean. We drilled into something's lair. And now it's coming to reclaim what we've disturbed." The facility shook again, more violently this time. Through the windows they could see the ice continuing to fracture. But worse than the physical destruction was the pressure in their minds. The sense that something incomprehensibly large was turning its attention toward them, studying them, deciding what to do with the tiny creatures that had disturbed its rest. Dr. Leon thought of all the calculations she'd done, all the models she'd run to predict what they might find beneath Europa's ice. In none of her scenarios had she imagined this, that they would become the prey of something that had been sleeping in the deep for longer than Earth's continents had existed. The thrumming sound reached a crescendo and then suddenly stopped. In the awful silence that followed, Martinez looked up from his console with fear in his eyes. "Commander, the drill's moving again. But we're not controlling it. Something's pulling it deeper." Dr. Leon had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. First contact with alien life. She had imagined it would be microscopic organisms, perhaps complex enough to be called primitive multicellular life. She had never imagined it would be something that could look back at them with intelligence older than Earth's biosphere. The Titan research station had been humanity's most ambitious project. A fully automated drilling platform capable of boring through Europa's ice shell to reach the subsurface ocean below. Leon's team of 12 had been in transit from Earth for 18 months, then spent another 3 months setting up operations on Jupiter's frozen moon. The work had been methodical, careful, designed to avoid contaminating what might be a pristine ecosystem. Now, as emergency lights bathed the drilling chamber in hellish red, Dr. Leon realized their precautions had been focused on the wrong kind of contamination. "Status report," Commander Robbins demanded as the rest of the crew assembled in the main chamber. Chief Engineer Patel spoke first. "The drilling platform is stable, but we're reading massive structural changes in the ice around us. It's like the entire shelf is reorganizing itself." "Communications are down," reported Systems Operator Hines. "Whatever that electromagnetic pulse was, it fried our long-range transmitters. We can't contact Earth." Dr. Leon moved to the Geological Survey Station, pulling up the seismic data from the past hour. What she saw made her stomach clench with fear. The tremors aren't random. They're following a pattern, radiating outward from our drill site in organized waves. Something down there is creating them deliberately. "You're saying that creature is causing the ice shifts?" Martinez asked. "Not the creature we saw. That was just..." Dr. Leon paused, trying to find words for what she'd realized. "Think of it like a snake shedding its skin. What we found in that chamber was the shed exterior of something much larger. The real creature is still in the ocean below." Commander Robbins studied the seismic readouts. "How much larger?" Dr. Leon had run the calculations 3 times, hoping she was wrong. Based on the scale of the shed skin and the seismic patterns, the living creature could be anywhere from 10 to 50 times the size of what we observed. We're talking about something kilometers in length. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. They were trapped on a research station barely 100 meters across, sitting on top of something that could swallow their entire facility without noticing. "Why hasn't it attacked us directly?" asked Dr. Rashid, the team's xenobiologist. Dr. Leon had been wondering the same thing. She pulled up the footage from the drill camera, studying the moment when the creature's sensory organ had opened and looked at them. I think it's trying to understand us first. That psychic pressure we felt, it was probing our minds, learning about us. Psychic? Robin sounded skeptical. The human brain generates electromagnetic fields, Dr. Leon explained. If this creature has evolved to detect and interpret those fields, it could effectively read our thoughts, our intentions, our memories. It would know everything about us within moments of contact. The station shuddered again, but this time the movement was different. More controlled, as if something was gently testing the structure above it. It's learning about our station too, Dr. Leon realized. Testing our defenses, our capabilities. Tech specialist Martinez looked up from his console, his face pale. Dr. Leon, you need to see this. I've been monitoring the drill camera, and the creature in the ice chamber is gone. They gathered around his screen. The vast cavity was empty except for fragments of what looked like crystalline ice and strange phosphorescent particles that drifted through the water like snow. Where did it go? Hines asked. Dr. Leon felt a chill that had nothing to do with Europa's frozen surface. It didn't go anywhere. It dissolved. What we saw wasn't a preserved corpse. It was some kind of psychic lure. Bait designed to attract curious minds. The station's lights flickered, and for a moment, Dr. Leon thought she heard something impossible. A sound like vast intelligence laughing in frequencies that bypassed human ears entirely. We've been played, she whispered. From the moment we detected those anomalous readings that brought us to this drilling site, we've been walking into a trap that was set before human civilization existed. Commander Robbins was already moving toward the emergency stations. All right, people, we need to assume we're under attack by a hostile intelligence. Emergency protocols are now in effect. Hines, I want you to work on getting our communications back online. Patel, start preparing the evacuation pods. Martinez, can you collapse the drill tunnel? I can try, but the boring assembly is still down there. If I collapse the tunnel, we lose our only way to study this thing. Dr. Leon grabbed Martinez's arm. Don't seal the tunnel. That's exactly what it wants us to do. Everyone stared at her. What do you mean? Robbins asked. Think about it. We're trapped on the surface of a moon with no atmosphere, no way to survive outside our facility. The only way off Europa is through the transport pods in our landing bay. But to reach the landing bay, we have to go through the station's lower levels, the same levels that connect to the drill tunnel. If we seal the tunnel, we trap ourselves up here. But if we leave it open, the creature can come up and get us, Robbins finished. Dr. Leon nodded grimly. It's a perfect trap. No matter what we choose, we're playing by its rules. The station shook again, and this time they could hear something else. A rhythmic tapping against the hull, as if something massive was gently knocking at their door. It's testing our hull integrity, Chief Engineer Patel said, studying his readouts. The station's built to withstand ice shifts and minor seismic activity, but if something that large decides to apply direct pressure. He didn't need to finish the sentence. They all understood. The Titan research station was a marvel of engineering, but it hadn't been designed to resist attack by a creature that could treat it like a tin can. Dr. Leon looked at the faces around her. 12 brilliant scientists and engineers who had signed up to make history by discovering life in Europa's ocean. Now they were the protagonists in a horror story that would likely never be told, because none of them would survive to tell it. There's something else, she said quietly. The psychic probe I felt when that sensory organ opened, it wasn't just examining us. It was also transmitting. I think it's been calling to others. Others? Martinez asked. This creature has been dormant for millions of years, maybe longer. But now that it's awake, it might be signaling to others of its kind. Europa might not be the only place they're hidden. The implications were staggering. If there were more of these creatures sleeping beneath the ice of other worlds, and if they could communicate across interstellar distances. A new sound interrupted her thoughts, the distinct hiss of atmosphere being vented into space. Someone or something had opened one of the external airlocks. Commander Robbins was already running toward the emergency controls. Hull breach in Section C. All hands to emergency stations. But Dr. Leon knew it wasn't a hull breach. Something had learned to operate their airlock systems. The creature below wasn't just intelligent, it was learning to use their own technology against them. The hunt had begun. The emergency klaxon wailed through the station as Dr. Leon and the crew raced toward Section C. But when they arrived at the airlock, they found something that defied explanation. The outer door was open to Europa's vacuum, but there was no rush of escaping atmosphere, no catastrophic decompression. Instead, the airlock was filled with a thick, luminescent fluid that seemed to pulse with its own internal light. "That's impossible," Chief Engineer Patel breathed. "The atmospheric pressure should have blown everything out into space." Dr. Leon approached the sealed inner door cautiously, studying the strange substance through the reinforced window. The fluid moved like liquid, but it maintained perfect pressure against the vacuum of space, as if it had its own surface tension that could resist the laws of physics. "It's not following terrestrial physics," she realized. "This substance is maintaining atmospheric pressure through some kind of directed molecular cohesion. The creature isn't just intelligent, it has mastery over matter at the quantum level." Commander Robbins checked the atmospheric readings. "We're still pressurized in here, but the sensors are picking up trace amounts of foreign particles in our air system. Whatever that stuff is, it's beginning to seep through our filtration systems." Tech Specialist Martinez was monitoring the external cameras. "Commander, you need to see this. Camera 7, external view." They gathered around his screen. The camera showed the station's outer hull, where dozens of thin root-like appendages were growing across the surface. The tendrils seemed to be made of the same luminescent material that filled the airlock, and they were systematically exploring every joint, every access panel, every potential entry point. "It's mapping our entire structure," Dr. Leon said with growing dread. "Learning how we're built, where our weak points are." Systems Operator Hines looked up from her console with alarm. "Internal sensors are showing movement in the maintenance tunnels. Something's inside the station." Dr. Leon felt the familiar pressure in her skull again, that sense of vast intelligence pressing against her mind. But this time it was stronger, more focused, as if the creature was no longer just observing but actively trying to communicate. Images flashed through her consciousness. Vast cities beneath alien seas, starships the size of continents, wars fought across galactic distances with weapons that could crack planets like eggs. And through it all, the presence of creatures like the one beneath them, ancient beings that had ruled the galaxy when Earth was still a ball of molten rock. "It's showing me its history," she gasped, staggering against the wall. "This creature, it's not from Europa. It's not even from our solar system. It's a refugee from an ancient war." "What kind of war?" Robbins asked. The images in Dr. Leon's mind shifted, becoming darker, more violent. She saw the creature's species locked in battle with something else, entities of pure energy that consumed matter and converted it to their own purposes. The war had lasted millions of years, spanning multiple galaxies, until the matter-based life forms were finally defeated. "They lost," she whispered. "The energy beings won, and the survivors fled to the edges of the galaxy. This one found its way to our solar system and has been hiding here ever since, waiting for the war to end." "And now we've found it," Martinez said grimly. Dr. Leon nodded, but she could sense there was more. The creature was still transmitting, still showing her images. Now she saw Europa's formation, watched as the creature had guided asteroids to create the perfect hiding place. A world locked in ice, protected from detection, with an ocean deep enough to hide in. It didn't just find Europa, she realized with growing horror. It made Europa. This entire moon is artificial, a constructed hiding place designed to look like a natural satellite. The implications were staggering. If Europa was artificial, then the creature had been manipulating human space exploration from the beginning. Every probe they'd sent, every discovery they'd made about Jupiter's moons, had been carefully orchestrated to eventually lead them here. "Why?" Commander Robbins asked. "Why lead us here?" Dr. Leon closed her eyes, trying to process the flood of alien memories. "Because it's been alone for millions of years, and loneliness can drive even ancient minds to madness. It wanted contact, wanted to share its history with someone who might understand. But it's also territorial, it can't let us leave with knowledge of its existence." Heinz's voice cut through their conversation with urgent alarm. "Internal sensors are showing massive movement in the lower levels. Whatever's in our maintenance system, there's a lot of it." They rushed to the main observation deck, where the internal monitoring system showed the station's cross-section. The maintenance tunnels throughout the lower levels were filled with the same luminescent fluid they'd seen in the airlock. But worse, the fluid was moving with purpose, flowing toward critical systems. "It's infiltrating our life support," Patel said, his engineering expertise making the threat clear. If it reaches the main processing units, we'll be breathing whatever it wants us to breathe, Dr. Leon finished. The station's lights flickered again, and this time they stayed dim. The creature wasn't just infiltrating their life support, it was taking control of their entire electrical system. Emergency power, Robbins ordered. Switch to backup generators. But even as Patel moved to comply, Dr. Leon realized the futility of their situation. The creature had been studying human technology since their first probes reached Jupiter. It understood their systems better than they did. It's not trying to kill us, she said suddenly. At least not yet. It's trying to incorporate us, make us part of itself. What do you mean? Hines asked. Dr. Leon thought about the psychic connection she'd felt, the way the creature's memories had flowed into her mind. It's been alone for so long that it's forgotten how to exist as a single entity. It wants to merge with us, add our consciousness to its own. That's why it's not just destroying the station. It's trying to create a living environment where it can study us, absorb us gradually. Martinez was monitoring the external cameras when he suddenly went rigid with terror. Oh God, you all need to see this. They looked at his screen and saw Europa's surface beginning to change. The ice wasn't just cracking. It was flowing, reshaping itself into geometric patterns that stretched to the horizon. And rising from the center of this vast mandala was something that defied comprehension. The creature's true form was emerging from the depths, and it was larger than any living thing had a right to be. What they could see was just a small portion of its bulk, a writhing mass of appendages and sensory organs that dwarfed their station completely. But the most terrifying aspect wasn't its size, it was the obvious intelligence behind its movement. Every gesture was deliberate, purposeful, calculated. How is something that large even possible? Patel whispered. Dr. Leon watched in fascination and horror as more of the creature emerged. Its body seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, parts of it phasing in and out of visible space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions it could choose to follow or ignore. It's not entirely in our reality, she realized. Most of its mass exists in parallel dimensions, which is how it can be so large without collapsing under its own gravity. What we're seeing is just the portion that's choosing to interact with our dimensional space. Commander Robbins was studying tactical displays, looking for any advantage they might have. Our weapons are useless, Dr. Leon interrupted. This creature survived a galactic war. Our plasma cutters and emergency charges are less than insects to it. But even as she spoke, she felt another pulse of alien thought. The creature was trying to communicate again, but this time the message was different. It was apologetic? Regretful? Wait, she said, pressing her hand to her temple as she tried to interpret the complex emotional transmission. It's trying to tell us something. It doesn't want to hurt us, but it can't let us leave. Why not? Robbins demanded. The answer came in another flood of images, energy beings spreading across the galaxy like a plague, consuming everything they touched. The creature species had fought them for eons before finally realizing that the only way to survive was to hide, to make themselves so undetectable that the enemy would eventually move on to other regions of space. The energy beings are still out there, Dr. Leon whispered. They're still hunting. If word gets out that matter-based life still exists in this region of the galaxy, they'll come here and destroy everything. Earth, Mars, the entire solar system. So it's protecting us by trapping us here? In its own way, yes. But it's also been alone for so long that it's not entirely sane anymore. It wants companions, but it doesn't understand that we need to maintain our individual consciousness to remain human. The station shuddered as more of the luminescent fluid seeped through their hull. Dr. Leon could taste something metallic in the air, nanoscopic particles that were beginning to alter their atmospheric composition. We're running out of time, she said. The creature is trying to prepare us for integration, but the process will kill us as individual entities. We need to find a way to convince it that we can coexist without merging consciousness. But even as she spoke, Dr. Leon realized the terrible truth. The creature was too alien, too ancient, and too damaged by eons of isolation to understand human psychology. In its mind, consciousness was something to be shared, not preserved separately. They were trapped between two forms of death: the slow dissolution of their individual minds as the creature absorbed them, or the swift annihilation that would come if the energy beings discovered their location. Dr. Rashid, who had been monitoring the biological sensors, looked up with a strange expression. Dr. Leon, I'm reading something impossible. The tissue sample we extracted from the shed skin, it's not just alive. It's growing. They rushed to the lab where the sample was contained in a sterile isolation chamber. What had been a small piece of alien tissue 12 hours ago was now a complex organic structure that pulsed with the same luminescence they'd seen in the creature's infiltration attempts. It's a communication node, Dr. Leon realized. The creature left part of itself behind deliberately. This sample isn't just tissue, it's a direct neural link to the creature's consciousness. As she watched, the sample began to change, forming structures that looked almost like a primitive brain. And suddenly, Dr. Leon understood the full scope of their situation. We've been thinking about this all wrong, she said. The creature isn't trying to absorb us through the station systems. This sample is the real threat. It's been growing into a receiver, designed to interface directly with human neural tissue. Martinez backed away from the isolation chamber. You mean it's going to try to take over our minds directly? Not take over, replace. The sample is creating a biological bridge that will allow the creature to transfer our consciousness into its own neural network. We'll cease to exist as individuals and become part of its collective memory. Commander Robbins was already reaching for the emergency sterilization controls. Then we destroy the sample. Wait, Dr. Leon said. If we destroy it, the creature will know we've rejected its offer of symbiosis. It might decide that we're too dangerous to keep alive. They stood frozen, staring at the growing tissue sample. It was beautiful in its alien complexity, but it represented the death of everything that made them human. What do we do? Hines asked quietly. Dr. Leon looked at the faces of her colleagues, saw the fear and desperation there, and realized that she was going to have to make the hardest decision of her scientific career. We're going to have to outsmart something that's been intelligent since before our solar system formed, she said. And we're going to have to do it before that sample finishes growing. The tissue pulsed brighter, and Dr. Leon could swear she heard something like anticipation in its rhythm. Dr. Leon stared at the growing tissue sample, her mind racing through possibilities. The creature had made one crucial mistake in its ancient wisdom. It had underestimated human ingenuity born from desperation. Martinez, I need you to access the drilling platform's resonance controls, she said suddenly. The drilling platform's been compromised. That thing has tendrils wrapped around our equipment. That's exactly what I'm counting on. Dr. Leon moved to the geological survey station, pulling up the seismic data from their drilling operation. The creature positioned itself directly beneath our drill site because it wanted to be found. But that means it's made itself vulnerable to the same resonance frequencies we've been using to break through the ice. Commander Robbins frowned. You want to use the drill against it? Not the drill, the harmonic resonance field. When we bore through ice, we use specific frequencies to destabilize the crystalline structure at a molecular level. But those same frequencies might be devastating to a creature whose consciousness exists across multiple dimensions. Dr. Leon's fingers flew across the controls, calling up the technical specifications of their equipment. The creature exists partially in our reality and partially in parallel dimensional spaces. That's how it can be so large. But dimensional interface requires precise harmonic alignment. If we can create dissonance at the right frequency, we could force it back into normal space, Chief Engineer Patel finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. And if all that mass suddenly existed in our reality at once, the gravitational compression would be enormous. The creature might survive, but it would be trapped in our dimensional framework, subject to our physical laws. It was a desperate plan, but as Dr. Leon watched the tissue sample pulse with increasing intensity, she knew they were running out of time. The biological communication node was nearly complete, and once it was ready, the creature would begin the process of consciousness transfer whether they consented or not. What about the energy beings it's hiding from? Systems Operator Hines asked. If we force it into our reality, won't that make it detectable? Dr. Leon had considered that. It's a risk we'll have to take. The alternative is certain death for all of us, and eventually for Earth when the creature decides it needs more human minds to study. Commander Robbins was studying the station schematics. The drilling platform is in the lower levels, right where that luminescent fluid is thickest. How do we get there without being absorbed? We can't avoid the creature's influence entirely, but we can protect ourselves temporarily. Dr. Leon moved to the emergency supply locker, pulling out the radiation protection suits they used for EVA operations. These suits will provide some electromagnetic shielding. It won't stop the creature's psychic probes completely, but it might give us enough protection to reach the drilling controls. They began suiting up, the familiar routine of checking seals and power systems providing a small comfort in the face of cosmic horror. But as Dr. Leon sealed her helmet, she felt another surge of alien consciousness pressing against her mind. The creature knew what they were planning. "You cannot escape," came a voice that spoke directly in her thoughts. "The energy destroyers will come if I cannot hide. Your species will be consumed. I offer preservation." Dr. Leon tried to project her response back at the alien intelligence. "Preservation isn't living. We need our individual consciousness to remain human." "Individual consciousness is loneliness," the creature replied. "I have been alone for millions of years. Join with me, and neither of us will be alone again." The psychic pressure increased, and Dr. Leon could feel the edges of her personality beginning to blur. The creature wasn't trying to be malicious. In its alien way, it genuinely believed it was offering them a gift. But that gift meant the death of everything that made them who they were. "Leon, you're showing elevated neural activity," Martinez warned, monitoring her suit's medical sensors. "The creature's trying to interface with you directly." She shook her head, trying to clear the alien presence from her thoughts. "It knows what we're planning. We need to move now before it can stop us." They made their way through the station's corridors, heading for the lower levels where the drilling platform was located. The luminescent fluid was everywhere now, coating the walls like living paint that pulsed with alien thought patterns. Their radiation suits provided some protection, but Dr. Leon could still feel the creature's presence probing at the edges of her consciousness. "Internal sensors show massive structural changes in the lower levels," Patel reported through the comm system. "The creature isn't just infiltrating the station, it's rebuilding it." They reached the access tunnel to the drilling platform and found it completely transformed. What had been a standard maintenance corridor was now an organic tunnel lined with the same crystalline structures they'd seen in the ice chamber. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. "It's trying to make us comfortable," Dr. Leon realized. "These patterns, they're designed to be aesthetically pleasing to human perception. The creature is trying to welcome us." But welcome or not, they had to push forward. They entered the transformed tunnel, their suit lights creating eerie shadows on the living walls. The tunnel seemed to extend much further than it should have, as if space itself was being distorted by the creature's presence. "Distance readings are inconsistent," Hines reported. "According to my instruments, we've traveled 300 meters, but we should have reached the platform after 50. "The creature is manipulating local space-time," Dr. Leon said, trying to keep the wonder out of her voice even in their desperate situation. "It's extending the tunnel to give itself more time to convince us to join willingly." They pressed on through the distorted space and finally emerged into what had once been the drilling platform chamber. Now it was something else entirely, a vast spherical room that extended far beyond the station's physical dimensions. The drilling equipment was still there, but it was integrated into a complex organic structure that pulsed with alien purpose. And floating in the center of the chamber, clearly visible now that it had partially manifested in their reality, was a portion of the creature itself. It was beautiful and terrible beyond description. Dr. Leon could see neural pathways that sparkled with thoughts older than civilizations, sensory organs that perceived spectrums of reality humans had never imagined, and throughout it all, an intelligence that radiated loneliness like a physical force. "You see me now," the creature's voice resonated through their minds. "I am the last of my kind in this region of space. The energy destroyers consumed all the others. I have preserved their memories within myself, but memories are not company." Dr. Leon approached the drilling controls, which had been transformed but were still recognizably functional. "We understand your loneliness," she said aloud, hoping the creature could interpret human speech. "But we can offer you companionship without merging consciousness. We can visit you, learn from you, share our experiences while remaining ourselves." "Individual consciousness is temporary," the creature replied. "Your species lives less than a century. You would visit for a brief moment and then die, leaving me alone again. But if you join with me, you will live for millions of years." "Living without choice isn't living," Commander Robbins said firmly. "It's just existence." Martinez was monitoring the tissue sample they'd left in the lab. Dr. Leon, the sample is ready. I'm reading massive neural activity. Whatever it's going to do, it's about to start. Dr. Leon's hands hovered over the drilling controls. The harmonic resonance generator was ready, the frequency calculations complete. But she hesitated. If she was wrong about the creature's dimensional interface, the resonance field might not affect it at all. And if she was right, forcing it completely into their reality might kill it, making her responsible for xenocide against the last survivor of an ancient species. Dr. Leon, Hines said urgently, biosensors are showing atmospheric changes throughout the station. The creature is beginning to release psychoactive compounds. We have maybe minutes before our consciousness is compromised. The alien presence in her mind intensified, and Dr. Leon could feel her individual thoughts beginning to blend with something vast and ancient. It wasn't painful. In fact, it was seductive, offering relief from the burden of solitary existence. But in that moment of temptation, she remembered something crucial. She wasn't just Dr. Sally Leon, xenobiologist. She was the product of billions of years of evolution, the heir to countless generations who had fought and died to pass their consciousness forward. She was connected to every human who had ever lived, not through psychic merger but through the precious continuity of individual experience. I'm sorry, she whispered to the creature, and activated the harmonic resonance field. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The drilling platform's resonance generators, designed to shatter ice at the molecular level, began broadcasting a complex waveform that interfered directly with the creature's dimensional interface. The beautiful, terrible form in the chamber began to writhe and contract as it was forced to exist entirely in their reality. The station shook with tremendous violence as millions of tons of alien flesh suddenly occupied normal space. The creature's psychic scream tore through their minds, not malevolent, but filled with confusion and pain as it struggled to compress its vast consciousness into three-dimensional existence. What have you done? Its voice echoed through their thoughts, but weaker now, more focused. I cannot maintain coherence. Dr. Leon watched in fascination and horror as the creature's form solidified, becoming fully material for the first time in millions of years. Its beauty was undiminished, but now she could see the terrible cost of its existence. Neural pathways that had once sparkled with multidimensional thought were overloading, sensory organs designed to perceive reality across parallel spaces were shutting down to prevent complete system failure. It's working, Martinez reported. The psychoactive compounds are dissipating. Whatever hold it had on our atmosphere is breaking. But even as the immediate threat receded, Dr. Leon realized they had created a new problem. The creature was dying. Forced into three-dimensional space, its vast consciousness was fragmenting, unable to maintain coherence in such a limited framework. I understand now, the creature's mental voice was fading, becoming more distant. Individual consciousness is necessary for your species. I was wrong to try to absorb you. But now I am trapped, and the energy destroyers will find me. Not necessarily, Dr. Leon said, her scientific mind still working even in the face of cosmic tragedy. She moved to the environmental controls, adjusting the resonance field's frequency. I can modulate the harmonic interference. Give you enough dimensional interface to survive, but not enough to hide completely. Why would you help me? I threatened your existence. Because you were trying to preserve us in the only way you understood. And because... Dr. Leon paused, trying to find words for the emotion she felt toward this ancient alien intelligence. Because no consciousness should have to face extinction alone. She adjusted the controls, reducing the resonance field's intensity by carefully calculated increments. The creature's form became less solid, partially translucent as it regained limited access to parallel dimensions. The immediate danger of gravitational collapse passed, but it remained vulnerable, detectable by any energy beings that might be scanning this region of space. Commander Robbins was monitoring their communications array. External transmitters are coming back online. We can contact Earth now. No, Dr. Leon said firmly. If we report this, Earth will send more expeditions. Eventually, the energy beings will notice the increased activity and investigate. The creature will have to choose between hiding and protecting our solar system. So what do we do? Hines asked. Dr. Leon looked at the creature's partially manifested form, seeing intelligence that had witnessed the birth and death of civilizations, that carried within itself the memories of an entire species. We make a different kind of contact. Not the first contact humanity dreamed of, but the one we actually need. She approached the creature's nearest sensory cluster, removing her helmet despite the risks. The alien atmosphere was breathable now, modified by the creature to sustain human life. We propose a partnership. You help us understand the galaxy we're entering, warn us of the dangers we'll face as we expand into space. In return, we provide you with companionship, real companionship between equals who choose to interact rather than beings forced into merger. The energy destroyers. The creature's mental voice was uncertain. We'll be careful. We'll learn to hide when necessary to avoid detection. But we won't abandon you and you won't try to absorb us. We'll find a middle path. The creature's sensory organs focused on her with something that might have been hope. You would risk your species' safety for one alien consciousness. We would risk our safety for any consciousness that deserves to exist, Dr. Leon replied. That's what makes us human. For a long moment, the chamber was silent except for the soft humming of the resonance field and the creature's complex biological processes. Then, slowly, the alien intelligence began to project a new kind of thought, not the overwhelming presence that had tried to absorb them, but something more like conversation. I have been alone for so long that I had forgotten what choice meant, it admitted. Your species, you choose to help even when it endangers you. This is why individual consciousness is precious. It is, Dr. Leon agreed. And it's why we can't let the energy beings destroy everything they don't understand. The creature's form pulsed with what might have been determination. Then we must be very careful. They are cunning hunters, and they have had millions of years to perfect their methods. But perhaps if we work together, both our species can survive. Commander Robbins was already planning their next steps. We'll need to modify our station, create a permanent research facility that can house both human and alien consciousness without compromise. Dr. Leon, can you work with the creature to design safety protocols? She nodded, feeling a sense of purpose that went beyond simple scientific discovery. They weren't just making first contact. They were creating a template for how different forms of consciousness might coexist in a universe full of dangers neither species could face alone. But even as they began planning, Dr. Leon couldn't shake the feeling that their actions had set something larger in motion. The creature had been broadcasting psychic signals as it awakened, and those signals might have traveled farther than any of them realized. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, ancient enemies might already be turning their attention toward this small yellow star and the life that flourished around it. The tissue sample in their lab had finally stopped growing, its purpose fulfilled now that direct communication had been established. But Dr. Leon wondered what other samples might be growing in hidden places throughout the galaxy. Lures left by survivors of the ancient war, waiting for curious minds to find them and decide the fate of two species. As she began her work with humanity's first alien ally, she couldn't help but feel that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The creature had shown them wonders beyond imagination, but also dangers that could extinguish every spark of consciousness in the galaxy. The ghost of Europa was no longer a threat, but the shadows it had been hiding from were vast, patient, and always hunting. 6 months after the breakthrough, the Titan research station had been transformed into something unprecedented, a joint facility where human and alien consciousness could interact safely. Dr. Leon worked daily with the creature, who had chosen the name Deep Memory in honor of its role as keeper of its species' history, developing new technologies that neither species could have created alone. The creature's warnings about the energy beings had proven accurate. Long-range sensors detected strange distortions in distant star systems, signs that the ancient destroyers were still active in other regions of the galaxy. But working together, humans and Deep Memory were developing countermeasures. Ways to hide entire solar systems from detection, methods of communication that couldn't be intercepted by energy-based intelligence. Dr. Leon often stood in the observation chamber, looking out at Europa's transformed surface. The ice had been reshaped into a work of art that could be seen from orbit, a message of hope written in crystalline patterns that proclaimed the possibility of cooperation between different forms of life. But sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, she wondered about the other signals that Deep Memory had sent during its awakening. How many had reached other survivors? How many had been intercepted by the enemy? The universe was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of things that wanted to destroy those wonders. Humanity was no longer alone in facing those threats, but Dr. Leon understood that their alliance with deep memory was only the beginning. In the depths of Europa's artificial ocean, ancient memories swirled with new possibilities. Two species that should have been incompatible had found a way to preserve their individual nature while working toward common survival. It was a fragile hope, but in a universe that seemed determined to extinguish consciousness wherever it arose, hope was the most precious resource of all. The ghost of Europa had become something else, a guardian, an ally, and perhaps humanity's best chance of surviving the dark wonders that awaited them among the stars. But in the deepest reaches of space, things older than galaxies had taken notice of the small blue world and its unusual moon. The energy beings were patient, but they never stopped hunting. The real test was yet to come.